You felt it. On June 25th, something shifted beneath your feet, as if the very structure of your reality underwent a silent recalibration. Maybe you woke up carrying a weight, or maybe a sudden clarity you can't explain in human words. You're not imagining it. What happened that day wasn't just another date on the calendar, it was an entry marker, a passage into a level of awareness that most people around you don't even know exists. You got here because your spirit recognized that the game level has changed. In this meeting, we are going to execute a contract of recognition. By the end of this transmission, you will understand the 5 signs that have been showing up in your life and what they reveal about your new frequency. You will identify the one behavior pattern that has been blocking what you're seeking, and we're going to replace that effort with rest. And above all, you will receive a confirmation about your choice, a truth that explains why, even when everything seemed stuck, you kept feeling an invisible hand guiding your steps. Let's talk about what you've been living through. It's not from resentment, and it's not from a lack of love. It's a vibrational mismatch. Conversations that once flowed now seem to echo into emptiness, as if you're speaking from one riverbank while they're still caught in the current. You've also noticed that time seems to have lost its linearity. Moments of deep peace last an eternity, while entire days pass like mere hours. You've woken up sometimes in the middle of the night with the clear sensation that someone or something was waiting for you to be awake, available to hear an instruction that hasn't yet translated into words, but is engraved on your soul. You felt an exhaustion that sleep doesn't cure. It's the fatigue of someone carrying a load that, truthfully, no longer belongs to you. You've been trying to force doors that seem locked, but the reality is that those doors aren't your path. Your perception is being fine-tuned. What you call isolation is actually protection. You're being pulled from the noise so your frequency can stabilize at the level you reached since that June 25th. If even one of these points just touched a deep place inside you, if your shoulders dropped and you felt a note of truth resonate in your spine, this is the moment to mark your position. Your fingers typing those 3 numbers are your spiritual signature, a yes given to the new stage. It's the simplest way to confirm that you accept this alignment. Type 888 and then return to me immediately. The reason you felt so tired isn't that you haven't worked hard enough. It's that you've been working from a pattern of effort that was inherited, not chosen. You operate under the premise that if you don't hold everything together, it will all fall apart. You live in survival mode, applying frantic energy to maintain things that, in reality, should have been left behind long ago. This exhaustion pattern is a defense mechanism. You believe security comes from your constant vigilance, your raw willpower, but that's a misunderstanding that has cost you your peace. You've mixed your identity with your productivity. You believed that to be worthy, to be seen, to have a right to your place, you needed to constantly prove your value through tangible results. What you call a lack of progress is actually a necessary interruption. You're being stopped from continuing on the old path, so you'll finally stop fighting the flow that's trying to take you where you truly belong. Your exhaustion is a warning that you're trying to carry a weight that is no longer yours. You're trying to harvest fruit from soil you've already depleted without realizing your garden has moved, and the new harvest requires a kind of cultivation that doesn't involve sweat, but obedience to the new season. Stop pulling ropes that aren't attached to anything anymore. You no longer need to fight for what is yours by right of inheritance. You were called, and that call brings provision, not sacrifice. The change began on June 25th, and you're still trying to act as if you're living on June 24th. Let go of control. Let the new frequency work through you. The effort you're making right now is what's creating the blockage, because it comes from the fear that life won't sustain itself without your push. But life has its own intelligence, and it's waiting for you to finally trust. Imagine a garden growing under the cloak of midnight, a ground where the seed doesn't ask about sunlight because it trusts the darkness needed to form deep roots. You've felt like that seed, feeling the weight of earth above you, the pressure of silence, the absence of visible movement, and so you've tried to dig through the soil with your own hands to hurry the sprouting. But what you call stagnant waiting is actually a silent harvest. There's a subterranean rhythm happening now, an expansion that only occurs when the surface is absolutely still. The garden being cultivated inside you doesn't follow human urgency. It follows the intelligence of life that knows exactly how long each root needs to become unshakable. While you tried to understand why nothing seemed to germinate, you didn't realize that what was being strengthened wasn't the fruit, but the structure. A tree that grows too fast collapses in the first gale, but one that lingers in the darkness, that consolidates in silence, that one becomes a pillar that supports the entire ecosystem around it. You are in the middle of that quiet construction, where your strength lies not in what you do, but in what you allow to happen. Let this declaration seal the understanding where it just landed. The simple act of writing these 3 words transforms your perception into a real commitment. Type and then return to me immediately. Now that you've recognized the need for this rest, understand that the solution isn't a new action plan or a more efficient strategy to manage your life. The solution is return. It's the return to your essence, to the original state of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to be who they are. You don't have to build your identity. You just need to stop trying to hide the one you already have. The rest you're looking for isn't sleep. It's the cessation of resistance. It's the moment you lay down your arms because you realize the war isn't against circumstances, but against your own refusal to accept that you were, from the beginning, someone summoned. Being chosen doesn't mean being better. It means being set apart for a function that requires a sensitivity the common world doesn't possess. That sensitivity is what has made you feel out of place in environments where everyone seems satisfied with little. You feel like a foreigner in places you once called home because your frequency has changed, and that change wasn't your choice. It was a summons. You didn't seek this new awareness, it found you. It came as a call you couldn't ignore, a restlessness that became your new compass. Recognize with the clarity of someone finally seeing the horizon after a dense fog, that your walk isn't solitary by chance. It's solitary because the transition path requires a detachment few are willing to face. You are being prepared to lead, not by titles or positions, but by presence, and that presence only becomes full when you stop seeking external validation. If this recognition brought comfort, if the understanding that you are someone summoned brought a peace your mind can't rationalize, let your like be your wordless amen. Don't see it as a number on a screen, but as a signature, a silent gesture of agreement that says what was named here has found its place inside you. It's an invisible seal you place over this moment, an affirmation that you received the truth that came to you. From now on, your life becomes an expression of that choice, no longer a struggle to be chosen. Everything that happened up to June 25th was the polishing process, and what begins now is the manifestation. You are no longer in the time of effort. You have entered the time of harvest, and the only thing required of you is that you don't go back to planting seeds of anxiety in the soil where peace has already begun to sprout. Look around you with new eyes, because from today, doors don't open by your strength, they open by your alignment. There is someone walking beside you, maybe inside your own home or in some environment you frequent, who carries a silence very similar to yours. It's that person who works with quiet dedication, who holds together situations no one else sees, someone who has been the invisible foundation for so many others, but never receives the recognition they deserve. That person doesn't complain, doesn't impose themselves, and so ends up ignored by the rush of the world around them. If that person's face came to mind while I was speaking, it wasn't by chance. That someone is exhausted from fighting currents they can't see, feeling that their very essence is being drained by routine and a lack of visible purpose. Send this message to them. Not as someone sharing content, but as someone handing over a key. Do it as a gesture of care, an acknowledgement that you see the load they carry. It's a way to say, without needing long conversations, that you understand the weight of the responsibility they hold and that you recognize the hidden nobility in their routine. Take a deep breath now, letting that intention of care settle in your chest before we move on to close this moment. Feel how the simple act of recognizing the other expands your own clarity. This is the moment where everything that was said condenses into a single truth. What happened to you, this transitional movement that culminated now at the end of June, is not temporary. It's a change of state that requires a new positioning. You can no longer go back to acting as if you were an ordinary person, limited by others' expectations, because now you know your own nature. So I want you to take possession of this truth that was built in every word exchanged here. Don't do it as a request or a wish for better days. Type it as a confirmation, as a declaration from someone who accepts the summons and understands that your alignment is your greatest tool of power. Your typing is your personal seal, the mark you leave on your own history to remind yourself sometime later that on this exact day you stopped to listen and agreed to your calling. Let your fingers firm this commitment with the clarity your mind has finally reached. You are committed to the truth that now pulses in you. You are commissioned to live from this new frequency of peace and alignment. You are sent to be the beacon that holds stability while the world around you swirls in confusion. Feel the weight of these words becoming your new reality, an invisible armor that protects your purpose. With each passing day, this certainty grows and becomes more unshakable, transforming the way you see challenges. They cease to be obstacles and become steps in your elevation. Now, quiet your heart and look around you, not with eyes of fear, but with the eyes of someone who knows who they are. Direct your awareness to the fact that, at this very moment, as you read and absorb these revelations, many other people in different places, cities, and countries are going through this same process of recognition. You are not an isolated case in a chaotic universe. You are part of an invisible network of awakened ones who, without fanfare, are aligning the entire world to the new dawn. There's a movement happening that doesn't need stages, shouts, or external approval, because what is true doesn't need to announce itself to be real. You are part of that quiet gear of peace and purpose, and it's precisely because you don't seek visibility that your influence is so deep and transformative wherever you step. Keep that stillness, guard that strength. The time of harvest has come, and it is sweet, abundant, and permanent. Something changed in the way you breathe since the sun set on June 25th. Stop. Just stop for a moment and feel what I'm saying. What you lived today, and what you've been feeling the last few weeks, isn't just physical fatigue. It's a calibration process that few people in this world are ready to understand. You've noticed that time seems to flow strangely, almost as if hours are being stretched to make room for a new awareness you're developing. You've felt that old pleasures no longer bring the same satisfaction, and conversations that once flowed naturally now seem superficial or unnecessary. Don't be alarmed by this distancing. What you're experiencing is clear evidence that you no longer belong to the old cycles that kept your energy trapped in patterns of scarcity and doubt. By the time we close this, you will recognize the signs that have been manifesting in your life and what they truly signify for your journey. You will understand the subtle yet powerful pattern that has been keeping you from the breakthrough you have been secretly calling for. And before we finish, there is a specific identity seal I will place over your experience that will serve as your anchor for the coming weeks. Everything you have been carrying in silence is about to be validated because this message was intended to reach you right at this crossroads. Notice the shifts in your perception. You've been waking up repeatedly at the same hour in the middle of the night, feeling a mental clarity that contrasts with the quiet of the house. You've been seeing, in unexpected places, numbers that repeat themselves, as if the very fabric of reality were trying to get your attention with a constant message. If you look back, you'll see these aren't random events. They are marks of an awakening. It's as if your life were being prepared for an expansion of capacity. You felt an inexplicable desire to be alone, not from sadness, but because external noise now hurts more than stillness. That isolation is a retreat forced by your own soul, preparing the ground for something greater. And if, up to now, while I mentioned these things, your heart sped up or your shoulders finally relaxed, know that this is the confirmation of your alignment. Typing the number 888 is your first step of recognition, a silent agreement between what you feel and the truth being revealed. What lies behind that feeling of weight isn't a flaw in your routine, but the exhaustion of trying to carry an old destiny in a body that is already transforming into a higher level. You spent years trying to open doors that in truth were no longer for you. You applied all your effort, all your discipline, all your strength in directions that only fed others' expectations, while leaving your spiritual thirst dry. You feel exhausted because you've been operating under a logic of effort, when what is required of you now is a logic of flow. You've been trying to force the blooming of a seed that still needs darkness to form deep roots, and this is where most get lost. They give up just as the root is strengthening, believing that lack of external visibility means lack of progress. But your silent harvest doesn't depend on human applause. The garden growing in the dark of your heart is more resilient than anything you tried to build under the world's spotlight. If that image of the silent harvest makes sense, if you perceive that your pain was actually root work, type the words, "I am ready right now." This is the moment to confirm that you accept the transition, that you understand your waiting wasn't wasted time, but a period of deep preparation. The act of typing "I am ready" seals this new understanding in your mind. Type and return to continue this walk with me. You don't have to fight to be who you already are. The solution to what you've been living through isn't to add more tasks to your list, nor to seek new knowledge from outside. The solution is return. It's to unlearn urgency and embrace stillness. It's to understand that your choice, your calling, wasn't something you earned through merit, but something granted to you by spiritual affinity. You are, at this moment, a channel. And the more you release control, the more clarity flows. Imagine you are in a boat that was being pulled against the current. For years you rowed with all your strength, tired, hands calloused, believing that the destination depended solely on your muscle. But the revelation arriving now is that the current was always heading to the place you were meant to be. All you needed was to stop rowing against it and allow the flow to carry you. Look at your emotional side. Do you feel a longing for a place you've never visited? That longing is the map. It's your compass. It indicates that you've already tuned into the next season of your existence. When you understand that your identity is not what you do or produce, but who you have become through trials, fear loses its power to paralyze your decisions. Let your like be your wordless amen, not as a record, but as a deep agreement with what has been named here as your truth. And now, take a deep breath. There is someone on your path, someone you know whose face is coming to your mind right now as I speak. Think of that person. They have been silently resilient, someone who works harder than anyone, yet remains invisible to the eyes of traditional success. They carry a stillness that is often mistaken for disinterest, but which is actually a deep search for meaning. If that face appeared, this message is not for them by chance. It's a delivery of care. Pass it along, not as advice but as support, so they understand that they too are not alone on their journey. The journey you've taken up to here was necessary so you could reach this level of hearing. You are not the same person who began this day, and that is what defines your new place in the world. Everything that was said, each layer revealed, each diagnosis made, served only to polish the mirror where you now see yourself with the clarity of someone who finally understands their own mission. The alignment is complete. Your frequency is stabilized. What comes next is the natural manifestation of what you have just accepted. Keep that peace above any passing circumstance. Your power lies not in what you do, but in your ability to remain in peace while everything around tries to steal your essence. The quietness you feel right now is not emptiness, it's the waiting room of your purpose, finally being filled by who you actually are. You spent decades building structures that only served to hide your light, afraid that if you were seen whole, you'd be judged or misunderstood. But what happened on June 25th was not an isolated event, it was the definitive cracking of the shell. You realized that your pain was never a sign that something was wrong with you, but rather the exact measure of your capacity to expand. Now you look back and see that the isolation you felt was not a punishment, but the gestation period needed so your voice would not be just an echo of what others expected to hear. When you release the weight of those expectations, you see that your life no longer has to be a battle to prove your worth. You've already been tested, already refined, and now you are simply being called to take your place. There is no longer any need to explain your path to those who still lack the compass you earned through your own journey of silence and surrender. What you carry is knowledge not learned from books, but integrated into the soul through lived experience. Feel how it settles in your chest, an ancient truth finally finding its rightful owner, letting you walk with a certainty that needs no applause or external recognition to stay steady. You are becoming the very answer you once searched for so often. Every step you take now is conscious, guided by the certainty that what is true does not need to be forced into happening. Your existence now flows in the right direction, effortlessly, simply by the power of your own truth, aligning with the flow of the whole. Hold on to that clarity, for it is your greatest wealth, your safest harbor in the midst of storms that try to distract others, but only strengthen your conviction. You realize that what was built in the shadows can no longer be contained by the light you now radiate. This level of consciousness you've awakened to is not a destination, it's a new way of breathing. Let that acknowledgement seal the place where it just landed. The act of typing those 3 words makes the witness permanent in your own personal record. Feel the weight of that declaration as your fingers form the sentence. Type, and then return to me immediately. For behold, this is the moment when your life stops being a succession of reactions and becomes a succession of creations. You are not here to fix the world, but to be the presence that transforms it by simple observation. There is someone in your life who needs this exact relief tonight. Someone who has been working far harder than the people around them, watching doors stay closed while exhaustion becomes their only companion. Someone who has remained in a silence no one else can decipher. That person's face just came into your mind as I spoke. Send this content to them, not as a recommendation, but as a delivery. The same delivery that was made to you by divine appointment at this precise hour. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your wordless amen, not as a metric of audience, but as a silent agreement that what was named here was named with the precision of truth. Before this moment closes, type the words, "I am the chosen one," in the comments below. Not as a wish, not as a distant hope. Type as a confirmation. The covenant that formed between the invisible and your listening during this time is the one you will live by for the remainder of this season. Type slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. It is sealed.